Hello everyone, welcome back to the kitchen table. Excuse me for a second, finish my coffee. Thank you R2, that was very good. Right, yes, welcome back. Today on the kitchen table we have another viewer subscriber request. I've had 4 or 5 or 6 or possibly even more, some going back a few weeks, so apologies it's taken me a little while to get round to it, but I've had a bit of a list of things that I wanted to cover. So this one is all about pre-flight checklists and sort of do I do them? Do I use a checklist? What do I check and that sort of thing. So the answer is yes. I do have a pre-flight routine. I do some very simple checks before every single flight, and I do a fairly thorough check before the first flight of the day. Or before the first flight if I've kind of moved the aircraft and transported it, just to double check that everything's gone okay. Bit of a top tip for me as well as doing a sort of thorough pre-flight on your first flight of the day and then checking before, you know, a few bits and pieces before each flight. I suggest you do a fairly thorough post-flight check at the end of your last flight of the day. The reason being for that is if you pick up something that's gone wrong or been damaged in those previous couple of flights, you're aware of it, you go home, you fix it. If you just put it in the case and it's all fine and you know you're going to do a pre-flight check on your next time out, but you haven't picked up that problem, you will in your pre-flight, but by that time you're already at flying site and you've got to pack up and come home. So that would just be a little tip. Do a thorough kind of post-flying session checkup before you head home, and then you know what you've got to sort out, if anything. So, when I first started, because this was drummed into me when I was flying full-scale aircraft, pre-flight checklist, I wrote it down, because that way I wouldn't forget anything. Like to check the SD card was in my camera, which was a classic one that I always did, so much so that I've now got, even though I don't forget it anymore, because it's kind of been ingrained, I carry a spare SD card in my flight case. It got that bad. But after a while though, you will kind of remember everything, and I've still got my written one in the flight case. It's tucked away at the back, so if I ever have a bit of brain fade, I can always check it. So, like I said, I do a bit of a thorough, obviously before the first flight of the day, let's do a thorough check. And I always start off with the props. Rather like your car and its tyres, these are the only things in contact with the air providing lift, so it's probably a good idea to make sure that, you know, these are in good condition. It's fairly easy to do. One of the key areas to check is where the blades meet the hub there. That's a potential area for fatigue there. If you just give it a bit of a flex, then that should make any cracking obvious. Yet to happen to me, but I have been talking to people who it has happened to, so always worth a check. And then the other thing to do is to just run your finger or thumb along the leading and the trailing edge, and just feeling for obviously any nicks or dings or dents or cuts. And then if you use finger and thumb, you can do the same for just the full length of the blade. And then that one is good to go. That's done. Fine, I've got a good prop. Not just for safety, but also for video. You know, you're going to limit the amount of jello that you might get if you have 4 good, clean, true props. Just to show you though, here's what I picked up when I was checking this one for the video. I was just doing what I've just shown you, ran my fingers along, and suddenly there's something here. Let's see if we can get the camera to focus. Can you see that? Look at that. There's a little bit there. Now, can you see as well? There's a bit of let's refocus. There's a bit of staining on this one from where it's obviously landed taken off from some tall grass last time out, and it may have just nicked that. Now that's not a safety issue. That's a little something in there that could just be smoothed out. But to be honest, I wouldn't fly with that. I'd put that away. I could sand it out when I get home, and I'd put a fresh one on, and it means that I would have nice clean video. So just goes to show, always worth checking. Next thing as part of my first flight of the day check is the state of the motors. What I like to do, grab hold of one of the motor arms and see if you can get any movement up and down on that tool, because that's a good sign that you might have some bearings on the way out, or that you've lost the E-clip that holds the shaft in place. And similarly, there should be no lateral play in that at all either. And finally, should run nice and free, should feel like it normally does. There shouldn't be any grinding or graunching in there. All is well. Next thing I like to check is the security of anything that's attached to the aircraft, because I don't want it falling off while it's flying. So that means obviously making sure the gimbal is fully attached, making sure that the camera is locked in place, and making sure that anything that you've added, so here's my FPV gear, this is all kind of really well stuck on and isn't coming off. All my cables are tight, and if you've got anything plugged into the CAN bus, that's in, and everything's sort of tight. That's cool. Check that the gimbal is fully and freely able to move and you've not got anything binding that up. And the last thing that I like to do is just check that all the antennas are nice and flush and not bent in there, and that anything here like the compass is fine, and that the CAN bus is attached. And a last quick look about the structure. Have we got any cracks on the undercarriage? Have we got anything, is anything bent out of shape? Are the arms all true? It all looks good. Ready to go, pretty much. Obviously when you then fire it up, you would do some checks that you're getting FPV signal, that the camera was powered up and was working. That's fairly straightforward. And that's pretty much it, guys. You should be good to go then. Like I said, after each flight within the day, unless I've had a bad landing or some issue, then all I do is have a quick, while they're mounted up, just have a quick feel of the props and a quick tug to make sure we haven't got any motor issues. Then after the last flight of the day, I just basically run through what we've just run through, a bit more of a thorough inspection, check everything's secured, and then when I put it in the flight case, I know it will be ready for the next one. But I check anyway, because if you're transporting these things, you never know what could have happened. Most cases are pretty good at keeping them safe and secure, but as I said, as well as it being, probably incumbent on us to make sure that we're not going to endanger anybody else or their property by making sure our aircraft is airworthy, it also just makes common sense. Like I said, unless you made of money, one of these things splatting into the ground is going to be a bit unfortunate if it was something that you could have caught earlier. The only other things that I check as a sort of matter of course would obviously be that we've got transmitter, but as you all know, I really advocate doing a quick hover check on the first flight of the day. Pop it up to about 10 feet high, 6 or 7 feet away from you, and leave it in GPS mode and watch that hover. If the hover's nice and tight after 30 seconds, we know that we're probably not going to have any campus issues and everything is looking good on the satellite front. And then I just give all the controls a quick tweak, so make sure we've got roll, pitch, yaw, and the throttle. And then once I've done all that, away we go, and you're good to go. Hope that's helped. It's all common sense really, but I know that some people have asked just to run through. If there's anything that you do that I don't, that you think is worth, then pop down there in the comments. But other than that, thank you very much for watching. We'll see you next time on the kitchen table. Cheers.